Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. My name is Dylan and I'm going to talk you through everything you need to know for the upcoming Year 6 SATs papers. When are they? What's involved? What do they look like? And the most important question is going to be answered at the end, which is how can you prepare? So make sure you stick around for that. But without further ado, let's dive straight in to what you need to know. And the first question is, when are these tests? When are you going to be sitting these SATs papers this year? Well, I've got the answers for you. It's going to be the week beginning Monday, the 13th of May. And on this day, you will sit the English grammar, punctuation, and spelling papers. There are 2 of them on that Monday. Paper 1 will just be the simple questions, and we'll break down what that looks like in a minute. And paper 2 will be the spelling. Tuesday, the 14th of May, you're going to be doing an English reading paper. So that's just one paper that day, but it's slightly longer. Again, stick around. I'm going to tell you exactly what's involved in a breakdown in a second. The next day on the Wednesday, the 15th of May, you'll be doing the maths papers. Well, 2 of them, paper 1 arithmetic and paper 2 reasoning. But many of you will be thinking, aren't there 3 papers for maths? And you'd be right. You do the last one on Thursday, the 16th of May. So in total, you have 6 papers, starting on Monday, the 13th of May, working every day all the way through to Thursday, the 16th of May. And if your school are kind and courteous and grateful for your hard work, I'm sure on the Friday you won't be doing anything else. You'll be having a nice, relaxing day. So that is when the tests are and what tests you'll be doing. But I know many of you are thinking now, okay, well, what's actually in them? What do they look like? How many questions are there? How long does it take? Let's answer those questions. What's actually included? So rewinding back to Monday, the 13th of May, this is the day where you'll do your GPS papers, okay, 2 of them. And here's the first one. That's what it looks like on the front. It will say English, grammar, punctuation, and spelling. Paper 1, questions. It's very simple, just questions. And there'll be 50 questions for you to answer. And the timer is 45 minutes. So throughout this, you should be thinking, how long do I get per question? And for this, you get just under 1 minute per question. Every single question is worth 1 mark, and there are 50 to get through. So you need really good stamina for this test to do one question after another, after another, after another. And this is what it will look like inside the paper. This is what's involved. So you'll get some questions where you've got to tick boxes and read the questions carefully because it looks like a table. You'll get some questions where you get a gap here and you might have to fill that. It could be adding a suffix, adding a prefix, changing a tense. It could simply just be put an adjective in there. But what's really important to remember is that even though this paper isn't explicitly spelling, we'll come on to that in a minute, you do have to spell things correctly when you write them into the box. If you don't, you won't get a mark because it is still testing your spelling kind of in the background. You'll also get some where you've got to circle, you might have to underline, and this is a really common question type here where you have to tick the box. Just be careful and wary. Where it says tick 1, it might say tick 2, tick 3. Read the questions really carefully. But you can see here, there's going to be a lot of different types of question and it will keep you busy for the entire time. Now that same day afterwards, you will have a break in the middle, but after that, you will do another paper on the Monday. And that's the other part of the GPS paper. You've done the grammar and punctuation questions, spelling's been tested in the background, but this now is the paper where it explicitly tests your spelling ability. So you will be tested on 20 words. Okay, now there's not strictly a timer for this section. We're not going to put a timer in, and if your teacher's only on question 14 after the timer's gone off, they go, oh, well, tough, we don't have it. No, of course not. We just want to test you on these 20 words, but it will take roughly 15 minutes. If you think about it, you've only got to write 1 spelling word down. And what's really interesting about the spelling is how it's laid out. So let's take a look. What's going to happen is you will get this on the left. That is all you will see, okay? A sentence with a gap in the middle. For example, question 1, there was a in the field. And what will happen is your teacher at the front of the room will be stood reading out what they see, which is over here. I've just snipped the first 3 for an example. So what your teacher will do is they will say, the word is blank, in this case, lamb. And at that point, you can start writing the word in if you like. But then they'll carry on because this is like a script for your teacher. They'll then read the second sentence, which is what you see with the word in the gap. In this case, question 1, there was a lamb in the field. And then finally, they'll repeat the first sentence again. The word is lamb. So all in all, you will hear the word 1, 2, 3 times. And in the middle, it will be in the context of the sentence you can see. Now, my top tip for this, guys, what you really need to know is that you are not tested at all in this spelling test on your handwriting. So don't bother joining it up, okay? Because what can happen sometimes with scruffy, quick, joined up handwriting, you're in the middle of a test, it might be hard to tell whether that's an I or an L. Did you manage to cross the T? I just don't know. I'm not sure. So the best thing to do when you're doing the spelling paper is to not join up your words and just to form each letter really clearly so that the marker can actually see it. There's no doubting that's L-A-M-B and you'd get a mark, okay? If you did it really quickly, the L might look like an I, the A might look like an O if you don't do your joining up properly. It's not worth it, okay? So just write them out one letter at a time really clearly. And that's the spelling test, and that's you done for Monday. Now, the next day on Tuesday, which this year is the 14th of May, you'll do the English reading paper. Now, this is the only paper you'll do this day, okay? But it's slightly longer. For this, you get 60 minutes, okay? And in that time, you'll have to answer around 38 questions. Now, you might be thinking, oh, okay, that's not too bad. I get about a minute and a half per question, something like that. That's decent, I mean, isn't it? Well, it's just something to consider because this timer includes reading time. You're going to have to read texts, okay? And if the last couple of years are anything to go by, the texts seem to be getting longer and longer and longer. At some point, they've got to put some poetry in there, which would be a shorter text. There might be harder questions, but it'd be a shorter text. But this is a lot of time spent out of the 60 minutes simply reading the text. Then you've got to answer the questions. So what does it look like in the reading comp? Well, it looks like this. You'll be given a separate booklet, which we can see here from 2023, and there'll be 3 texts inside. That's a lot of reading. You've got to read these texts and answer the questions as you go. So it's really important that you are on the ball and not wasting any time in the reading test. And my advice would be read a little bit of the text, sure, but I'd be reading the questions at the same time. I'd be going backwards and forwards and backwards. It'd be like watching a tennis match, yeah? If you're in the hall doing your SATs paper, if I was watching and invigilating, I'd see a tennis match going on. You'd be watching it like this, back and forth, back and forth. That's my biggest piece of advice. In your separate booklet, so you have obviously the reading booklet here, you'll also have a question and answer booklet. And these are the questions we'll see. Again, we've done lots of videos in this. Go to our channel if you want to see a breakdown of previous papers. We'll come on to the end of how you can prepare, but this is just what it will look like. For example, on the right-hand side over here, this is a 3-mark question, and it's laid out like this. Hayden did an amazing video on how to answer 3-mark questions. Go and watch it. Over here, we'll see a 2-mark question, and it's split up into 2 for us, and it says here, write 2 reasons. Lots of hints there. We've got to do 2 things, but we're not always just going to be writing the answer. Sometimes we might have to tick a box, just like in the GPS, and even here, we have matching. So it's really important in the comprehension to read the question carefully because it will ask you to do different things for each question. It might be writing, it might be circling, it might be joining. You've just got to read the question carefully. But the biggest piece of advice, whenever you're answering a question in the comprehension paper, the answer will be in this reading booklet. Refer to the reading booklet. If it asks you what color the sky is, you should have your eyes go straight to the booklet. Do not have your eyes go straight to the window. Well, it looks pretty grey today. No, every question in the comprehension can be answered from the text itself. Okay, good. And that's all you've got to do on Tuesday, because Wednesday, now we've done the GPS, we've done the English. In fact, we've done all the English papers now. We're going to focus on maths. So there are 3 maths papers. On Wednesday, you do 2 of them. You will start off with paper 1, arithmetic. Arithmetic is 36 questions. And you get 30 minutes. So we're back to less than 1 minute per mark. But it's okay when it comes to arithmetic, because I'm actually going to show you now what the questions look like. And the reason it's okay is because, look, this is question 1 from last year. This is a very simple question. Honestly, if you're up to scratch, you could answer this question in less than 10 seconds. Take away 10 from 707. Well, there's no 10 there, but I know it's 70 tens. So the answer would be 69 tens with a 7 at the end. You can answer that genuinely in 3 seconds. So the time is nothing to be too scared about when it comes to arithmetic. But just beware, when you can answer questions quickly, make sure you answer them quickly. Because look, towards the end, question 33, this is the 2-mark question. Okay? So yeah, there are 36 questions in this paper, but it might be out of more marks because you do get the odd 2-mark question for long division or long multiplication. And again, we see down here percentages, we see fractions, you'll see every single strand. But the key thing to remember for arithmetic is you are just doing maths. There's nothing to kind of work out and problem solve here. You're not trying to think, oh, should I do subtraction? Well, look, obviously, look, there's a subtraction symbol. Oh, is it percentages here? Am I doing percentage of an amount? Well, yeah, look, it just says 95% of 180. This is the paper, honestly, where we should be aiming for as many marks as possible because we are just doing maths. There's no intermediate step where we have to work out, what's the question asking me? Is there 2 steps? Is there 3 steps? You just do maths, okay? So this is one we should be looking at thinking, I can cash in some marks here. After that, on the Wednesday, you'll obviously have a break, and then you'll do paper 2 reasoning. Now, this is where the test gets more interesting, in my opinion, because arithmetic was just plain maths. You're given numbers and what to do, and you just do it. This is slightly different. So I've put here roughly 25 questions, because looking back through previous papers, it does chop and change, okay? But it's roughly 25 questions. It might be less, it might be more. Just depends on the given year, depends how tricky the questions are. But what you will get is 40 minutes to answer them. So now we're back to 1.5 minutes per question, nearly 2 minutes per question, okay? Which is great because we need it, because this is what the questions will look like. Much different to the arithmetic. You're going to have some reasoning questions where you have to write sentences. Whenever you see these clouds, it's an indication you've got to do some explaining, some reasoning. Not just the maths, but explain why you did the maths and what the maths shows, okay, and how you can prove something. You'll also get questions where you've got to rank things lowest to highest like this. So just be careful, again, just like the reading comprehension, to read the question carefully, because each time you might have to do something different. Here's a really cool example of a question you can get in reasoning, which you'll never get in arithmetic: to measure an angle. You have to use a protractor, which you will be given. You'll be given a ruler, protractor. Every single piece of equipment you need will be in front of you, and you'll only have that equipment if you need it, okay? And well, do you need it? You'll have it. So if it says measure angle A, you should be using a protractor, lining this up nice and neatly, and then putting your answer down there. And again here, just another example: coordinates, geometry, shape, statistics. The list is endless, okay? But in the arithmetic paper, you're going to get 4 operations: place value, percentages, fractions, decimals, that kind of stuff. You're not going to get coordinates and geometry. You're not going to get reasoning questions, okay? This is where you'll get them in the reasoning paper. So this is where you get to show off all of your other maths knowledge: geometry, coordinates, etc., things like that. Then you finish on Wednesday and you come back on Thursday with just one more paper left. And it's paper 3, because we've done arithmetic paper 1, reasoning paper 2, now another reasoning paper for paper 3, roughly 23 questions. Again, it's rough, but it's usually a bit less than paper 2. Paper 3 is usually a bit trickier. Not always, and it's down to personal preference. I get that, but usually a little bit trickier. That's why there's fewer questions. But you get 40 minutes again for this paper, and the questions look much the same, okay? But what you might notice, like I just said, you might get a few more 3-mark questions in paper 3, okay? And that's the reason why you might get fewer questions in total again. Okay, difficulty is down to you guys, but the same thing's going to happen. You might have some reasoning questions like before. Look at this question. What I wanted to do here with these 4 questions was basically just show how different every question will look. And the biggest tricky part for reasoning, guys, when you're preparing for the SATs, is that when you do a reasoning paper, you may well have never seen a question like this before. You may well have never seen a question like this or like this. We do lots of prep and we do lots of actual working things out, and you might know how to actually do the maths here with the fractions, and you might know how to reflect, and you might know how to use a machine to kind of go forward and use algebra, but you've never seen it in this context. And that's what good problem solving is: new contexts for maths that you know how to do. So the tricky part for this is to apply the maths you already know to the tricky problem solving, and the best way to do it is to practice. But we will come on to at the end how you can prepare really well for these SATs papers. So you've done the test now. We know when the test week is, okay? We know the dates, they're all there. What are the grade boundaries? Like, how am I actually assessed here? Well, this is really interesting. So marks are shown as a scaled score. So when you complete the paper, I showed you what they're out of. It might be out of 40, it might be out of 110, it might be out of whatever. But what happens is, no matter what the score is out of, it will then be put as a scaled score. And all that means is all the scores will be put between 80 and 120. So the lowest score you can get doing the SATs paper is 80. The highest score is 120. And because the difficulty of the papers change every year, it wouldn't really be useful for us to say, well, in 2018, some children on average got 30 out of 50. And in 2016, on average, they got 40 out of 50. Because it might be easier when you got 40 out of 50. So the scaled score just adjusts your score to show how tricky the paper was and shows where you are. The lowest is 80, the highest is 120. So what are the boundaries then? Well, working towards the expected standard, WTS you may see it written as, is 80 to 100. Okay, so anything from 80 up to 100, not including 100, but anything from 80 upwards, that means you haven't quite met the standard that the government have laid out that you should be meeting at the end of year 6 for Key Stage 2. You're not quite there. But 100 plus is the expected standard. So if you score 100, that's the average score. Boom, you're right there in the middle. That is exactly where a year 6 child should be. So anything 100 and above, you've hit the expected standard. But you're probably sitting there thinking, well, isn't there something else as well? Isn't there a different thing like further up? Yes, there is. It's called greater depth. Now, greater depth still comes under the expected standard. You're still where you should be, but greater depth is if you get a scaled score of 110 or more. Now, this is tricky to get. Okay, and what this shows is you've just gone even further. You've not just met the expected standard, you've gone to a greater level, you've gone to a greater depth. Okay, and that's the aim for a lot of children, to try and push to that further boundary, 110 plus. If you're in the 110s with the maximum score of 120, that's right at the top level. So they're the 3 boundaries you can get if you take the SAT papers in general. 80 the lowest, 120 the highest. You're looking to try and get 100 or above. Okay, that's roughly where we want to be. So when will I know my results? That's a really important question. You've done all this hard work, all this hard preparation. I'm going to tell you how to do it in a second, by the way, that preparation. When will I actually know my results? Well, it's marked by teachers, okay? And it takes a while. We know us teachers are busy, guys, okay? So it takes a while to mark, and it's by people who've applied to be a SATs marker. So they've gone through training, they get all the resources to mark, and they go through them, and they'll get not even a whole paper, they'll get a certain page. So they keep marking the same page, or the same 2 or 3 pages. So they get really good at marking that exact paper, and then everything's collated back up. So your test might be sent off to 10 different teachers in different segments, and then it gets sent back, and your school will be able to access your scores online from Tuesday, the 9th of July. Okay, so about 2 months. It's not short, this turnaround. It takes about 2 months to get them all right. And this is not the date, by the way, that the school has to share it with everyone. This is just the date where the schools get access online. So as teachers, we can see the scores. When do you actually get them? Well, that's down to each school. They'll decide how they issue these results to pupils and parents. But they should be received, obviously, by the end of the summer term. So by the end of year 6, you will have received your scores in some shape or form. Now, usually it's in the form of an end of year report, but schools might not want to wait that long. The dates might not match up. They might give you the scores earlier. Okay, so it's down to each individual school. There is no one way of giving out all of this information. So I said at the start, how can I prepare? And honestly, guys, one of the best ways you can prepare is to work hard in school. That's the first thing. Your teachers are the experts here. You do most of your learning at school. But look, we've put so much time into all of our preparation videos, lots of revision. We've broken it up into sections. We've got maths, we've got GPS, we've got comprehension. Guys, go and watch our videos if you want to prepare for these upcoming SATs papers. Really hope that was helpful. Please like, subscribe, and do share this with anyone you think wants to know this information. If it's going to help people, guys, that's why we do it. Okay? So thanks a lot. Let me know down in the comments below if you are taking your test at any point, or if this was helpful, or what you want to see in the future. See you next time.